welcome to Cambridge AI. I can't remember what number this is. This is probably 13 or 14 or something like that. We've been doing these every couple of months, and they're events to look at different case studies around AI. And every couple of months we look at a different sector. And tonight's AI in marketing. And I noticed that between every event, there's about 100 people normally who sign up to the mailing list, and there are 150 people this month. So that's either that people have suddenly got very excited about AI or very excited about marketing, or maybe a bit of both. So I would like to, first of all, thank our speakers for coming. We've got some great speakers tonight. Rod from Ditto, and Gianluca, Jean-Michel and Mark Liney, and we'll be hearing from them a little bit later. I'm Mark Rogers. My day job is working for our other big supporter, which is Grounded AI. Grounded AI is a business that is trying to install a layer of trust to the internet. So we work with academic publishers and legal businesses essentially to verify claims and citations, to try and make sure that anything that's claimed in a learned paper or in a legal deposition actually is backed up by an accurate citation. And I'm sure you've probably seen cases in the press about when that doesn't happen and the misunderstandings that arise. So that's Grounded AI, and we put this event on together with our supporters at RedTech. So I'd just like to invite Rob from RedTech to introduce RedTech and their business. Thanks, Rob.
Hi everyone, I'm Rob from RedTech, the co-founder. I'm here tonight with my...
Turned on. Is it on?
With my other co-founder, Rebecca, and Lauren from our marketing department. So RedTech, we specialise in tech recruitment, specifically within the UK and USA. Now, there's a few things we're really proud of. We are an award-winning agency. We've won 2 years in a row now, Best STEM Recruitment Agency in the UK. We have over 100 5-star Google reviews. And I'd like to just share with you, because I know it's the real talk at the moment, of Claude's thoughts on us, which is, the reviews speak for themselves. Candidates consistently highlight that the process feels personal, not transactional, with consultants going above and beyond to prep candidates and keep communication flowing throughout. So really happy with that. Anyone that came to the last event, we asked ChatGPT the same thing, and it's going as well, which is good. And just as a little example I'd like to give, so from the last event, Mark hasn't told you this yet, someone that was here called me up and said, actually, really like what you guys were doing, gave us a brand new job, new client, we placed it, it was a senior Python developer, and he said, you've actually shown me what good recruitment looks like. So we're really happy with that, and thank you, Mark, for that as well, that we got that from you guys. So if anyone's looking to recruit, anyone looking for a new job, please come and find me or Rebecca. Happy to talk to you, and I hope everyone enjoys the drinks and peace tonight. Thank you.
Our first speaker tonight is Mark Liney from Monika.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Liney. I'm the co-founder of Monika, and this evening I've also got our lead engineer Simon Fothergill with us, who's going to be co-presenting. So tonight, what I really want to talk about is the most argued about word in any company, which is the brand name or the product name. And why? Because brand names and product names are incredibly important. In the world of branding, we talk about this notion of a brand's distinctive assets. That's the visual, the verbal, and the sonic cues that really set you apart from the competition. And your brand name really sits at the apex of this, because it is, by law, unique. So your brand has huge commercial value, huge strategic value, but also huge creative value, because the right name can immediately transport you to a place or a moment. Think about this beautiful example out in the US, Lake Hour, ready-to-drink cocktails. That name just immediately evokes lakeside, sun going down, cocktail in hand. But your name can also convey your proposition in the most simple terms. So this is Tom Holland, the actor. He went teetotal a couple of years ago, launched his own zero alcohol beer. What better name for it than Beero? brand name can also imbue an unmistakable personality and really set the foundation for the expression of the rest of the brand. A lovely example here of a pasta sauce brand out of Australia, sorry, Nonna. And the right brand name can also set our senses and imaginations running. It's my favourite fragrance brand in the world, DS and Durga, and they just go absolutely crazy for their product names. My favourite of them all, Concrete After Lightning. So immediately when you hear that name, you start to think about it, you start to smell, you start to imagine what that sense is going to be like as well. So brand names are incredibly powerful both commercially and creatively. And so as a result of that, creative agencies have always been the go-to choice to develop them. So an organisation has a new product or a new brand or needs to rebrand, go to a creative agency to come up with a name that is going to answer all of their problems. But the problem with this approach is that brand and product naming has slowly been becoming a hidden bottleneck in business growth. Because while we can design and develop products faster today than ever before, naming just hasn't kept up. And the reason being, it's a very slow and expensive manual process. It can take weeks to months, typically costs 30k plus up to 100k, depending on the agency you're working with. It's legally fragile, so no agency that I've ever worked at or worked with really has any real good legal view of whether or not a name can actually be trademarked and legally owned. And also it's hard to scale. If you need more names, if you need more options, guess what? It's more time, it's more people, it's more budget. So at Monika we said that there's got to be a better way of doing this. So about 18 months ago we launched our MVP, which we kind of talked about being a human AI Monika machine. So it's a Monika delivery system that offers the equivalent creative potential plus the legal head start that companies need at a fraction of the cost, time and effort. So we said 20 names, legally screened in 5 days for $5,000, taking thousands and thousands of dollars off what agencies typically charge, and also a huge amount of time out of the process. But quite quickly, we realised that this product was kind of reaching its ceiling, both architecturally and organisationally. So from an architectural perspective, the initial product had really limited exploration depth. It was everything was kind of rule-based. We were bound by the breadth of the data sets that we were working with, and crucially, evaluation of the names the system was generating remained external. And what I mean by that is myself and my co-founder looking through lists of thousands of names going, that's good, that's bad, that's good, that's bad. But also, it wasn't really solving the problem for our clients as well, because naming remained just a project. It wasn't building any capability into the client organisations we were working with. And also, pressure was still sitting on too few bets. We were giving them 20 names, but quite often to build consensus in a large organisation, we need to see hundreds and hundreds of names to know that we're making the right decision. And crucially for us, creative teams that we were working with said, we don't want to outsource this problem, we just want a tool that's going to amplify what it is that we do. It's something I should have mentioned on the last slide. 80% of our clients since launching this product have actually been creative agencies. So the very agencies that are out there charging 40, 50 grand for a process would come and pay us 5 grand, still charge their client 50 and walk away with a big fat margin off the top. So we said that we've got to rethink what this looks like. So Monika 2.0 embeds expert trained naming capability directly inside organisations. It unites machine scale exploration, integrated evaluation, and legal screening, all within a single SaaS platform. Now, a little look under the hood in terms of what's actually kind of going on within this from an AI perspective. So the average person judges names fairly intuitively. How does it sound? What does it mean? But there's far more expertise that really sit underneath that when it comes to professional namers. There's dozens and dozens of signals that professional namers consider across creative factors, so aesthetically, what are the characters and qualities of a name, strategic factors, what signals is it sending about this particular brand, and then of course the phonetic factors as well, the structural properties of language that shape how a name works in use. What we've done at Monika is codify everything that sits underneath the surface there within the iceberg analogy. So across these dimensions of creative, strategic and phonetic, we have unpacked what each and every single one of those means. And what we see here, an example, is just a couple of examples of what we mean by that. So from a creative dimension perspective, we've developed a whole series of clues that talk about whether a name actually carries creative quality, whether it's actually going to resonate creatively. One of those clues, an example of that, is ring. So how pleasing the name is to say in here. We then unpacked ring even further to say, well, what do we mean? What do we mean by a name being pleasing to say in here? It's got to be easy to say. It's got to have a balanced mix of sounds about it. It's got to be something you could repeat 10 times and not go crazy in doing so. It's got to have a natural rhythm about it, a memorable pattern about it, distinctive to the ear, and avoiding any negative sounds or awkward sounds that we have to make. So we've unpacked all of these sub-clues, and then through machine learning models, because that's obviously the only way we can actually get computers to be able to evaluate in the same way that we are as human beings. We've actually trained these machine learning models to evaluate names in the same way that we as creative human beings do so. And each and every one of these dimensions has a series of sub-clues underneath, a series of clues underneath, a series of sub-clues that then break each one down as well. And what all of that comes together as is a process that turns naming expertise into AI models that mirror, predict, and automate the naming process. So I'll just walk you through what that process looks like. So firstly, we're turning the brief into structured inputs for name generation. Everything from the design of the brief, which is captured to carry the, designed to capture the inputs that we know carry the qualities that strong names come from. We extract keywords, those that are deemed most likely to carry the qualities associated with strong names. And then we also reframe the brief through a number of different strategic contexts as well, in order that we can start to surface additional concepts. Then we come on to the actual generation of names. We've got a whole suite of models that are running. We categorize them like this. First, we've got a series of expand models. This is about expanding the semantic field using a variety of synonymy to surface terms that are likely to carry the qualities of strong names. We've got a variety of shift models, which is all about orienting terms into entirely new conceptual spaces. Think about metaphors, adjacent domains. Again, all those that hold high potential for naming. And then we've got our aesthetic storming, our riff models, which is all about shaping promising terms by optimizing for recall and phonetic distinctiveness in the exact same way that human namers start to style certain words. At the same time as this generation, we've also got the evaluation methodology running. As names are being generated, they're being evaluated in real time. So everything is scored through that framework that I talked through earlier on, scoring these names against all of these different dimensions and these different qualities. This is underpinned by a training data set where we've scored hundreds of thousands of names, both ourselves as well as employing a vast array of very talented namers. That forms the system's training foundation. And then we've actually built and trained these machine learning models on this data set in order that they can start to replicate the evaluation patterns of expert namers at scale. I'll just give you a quick look in terms of what that looks like under the hood. So what we see here is a pretty gnarly concept graph. So from the inputs at the top, so these are kind of keywords that are coming out of the brief, the way that we've reframed kind of key concepts coming out of the brief. Then all of our models start getting to work, whether it's developing synonyms, whether it's looking for the right metaphors and so on. What you see in terms of different color coding going on is the names being evaluated in real time as they're generated. So red obviously being bad, amber being possibly holds potential for something, green being that could possibly work as a potential name. So this brief that we're looking at, it was for a new electric SUV in the US market. So we can see here the input of outdoor. They said that's something. This is very much an outdoorsy type product. So it leads us to something like freedom. The system goes, hey, freedom could be a cool name for a car. It leads us to outdoors, outdoorsman. Not good. Not going to kind of stand as a brand name. Freedom again leads us on to liberty. So the beauty about the way this system is set up is it's not a linear process. It's a constantly iterating process, constantly looking for these new and different connections. And here's another example. How we've gone from rugged as an input, saying we want this vehicle to kind of feel really rugged. And through a series of transformations, we've ended up with the potential name Grace, which is actually a really lovely name for an electric vehicle in this market. You expect it to be masculine and rugged and tough and all of these things, but it moves with grace. So we thought that was a potentially strong name as well. And just another example here, this was for essentially an AI risk platform that large enterprise businesses would employ to effectively kind of stay ahead of the game when it came to risk, be able to detect risks ahead of the game. And so we can see some of the pathways that we start to go through. So autonomous, again, being an input that we've taken out of that brief, leads us to sovereign, obviously a very different meaning of that word autonomous, but we understand where that's come from. Sovereign leads us to crown, again, okay, we can kind of see the connection there. Crown leads us to treetop. Treetop all of a sudden becomes a potentially really strong name for this system that sits above all of the organisation's operations, sees things top down and detects risks before they happen. I'm going to hand over to Simon briefly, who's going to talk through a little bit more detail in terms of what's going on.
Thanks, Mark. Hi. So you might be wondering, like, how does this work in even more depth? And maybe it uses Gen AI. It doesn't. Gen AI is based on LLMs, large language models, which we do use, but we use it in a careful way. So the thing with LLMs is they model the probability of syntax. So syntax is a structure. And that structure, it can hold more semantics because of the way like language works. It can hold more semantics, but it can't hold that much. And if we want to model and therefore sort of project all of the meanings that Mark has talked about, so all of those different sorts of names, all of the meanings that come to mind when you hear a name, like that's a lot for that purely syntactic structure to hold. And what you end up getting is basically some sort of like residue, or I call it like a distorted semantic shadow of reality. It's actually all that's held within a large language model. So that's not good enough for us, because we have all sorts of more complicated structures that we need to hold, that we need to model to hold that more meaningful information, like logical, ontological relationships, like that things happen at the same time or in the same space, like linguistic relationships, like things are part of something else, or like embodiment. So like the fact that I feel a certain nostalgia to a certain name because, or to a certain object because I saw it in a child's TV program or something like that. Like all those sorts of, that's a lot of structure and links and dependencies between things, which is not captured purely by syntax. So our models, they bridge this gap so that we address the shortcomings of LLMs by building models that get closer to how we actually, as humans, experience names. And just to mention like a few little tricks. So we do use large language models, as I said, but in a very controlled way and in a very careful way. So we embed words, but those words come with definitions that follow a very similar syntax, so that we don't get any biases in the models, because some sentences are longer than others. We build subspaces from that embedding space of the LLMs, which have dimensions which are defined by our experts. We don't just accept what Sam Altman gave us. Like we determine the shape of the space. And we don't just use LLMs. We use other sorts of models. We use associative models, so models that are out there or that we have built ourselves that just say like play the word association game, and combining that sort of thing with embedded spaces. And as we build our models, we're always evaluating them on a growing and growing set of domain, like brief name pairs. So hopefully it should work quite well.
And then comes the piece of trademark screening. So it's all very well and good being able to generate a huge breadth of names that meet all of these strategic factors and creative factors that we've identified. But if you can't own them, there's no value in it. So we've got integrated trademark pre-screening that effectively operates the exact same way as if you go to a trademark attorney and say, can you run a knockout search for me on this particular name? That's exactly what our system does. So searches globally, screen against global trademark databases, obviously taking into account the markets and classes that clients require protection in. We've developed our own similarity algorithms that detect potential conflicts in both spelling and pronunciation. Then each and every single name that is deemed of a sufficient quality is passed through for trademark risk grading, and we'll receive everything from an A through to an F grade. And obviously only A, B, C grades are actually going through in our final output to clients. So what all of this means, unlike the agency approach and unlike the V1 approach that we actually developed at Monika, is that you're able to generate 500 creatively viable, legally viable names in under 24 hours. Expert naming judgment is built into that generation process to ensure the quality of these names that are coming through. Names are automatically pre-screened against the global trademark databases. But then the design of the SaaS product in itself as well is designed for the teams that are actually tasked with coming up with names, time and time again. It's got collaborative features in there. People can add their own names, and it can be legally pre-screened in real time as well. And ultimately, this leads us to a far more efficient path to brand naming. Greater speed, far greater scale than human beings are able to come up with, greater quality of names that human beings are able to come up with, and obviously greater autonomy within the process as well. So that results in faster processes for clients, high confidence in both the quality and from a legal perspective, and then ultimately lower cost as well. In terms of how we take it into market, there's two key audiences that we're working with. The first one being global agencies, so naming agencies, branding agencies, advertising agencies. And then the second key audience is enterprise businesses. Think of those in high velocity categories such as CPG, pharmaceuticals, those that are having to launch multiple products every single year. Our commercial model is designed around the way naming shows up in practice. So some people are going to have something they need to name once and might not ever need to do it again. So you can turn on, turn off for 1 month. You've then got this middle tier, so 15 different projects per year allocated within that, and then finally the enterprise tier as well, which is for very much those high volume, whether that's global agencies, global networked agencies, or indeed these enterprise businesses as well. Simon, do you want to close out?
We're at time.
Sure. I'll just link up.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Thank you.
We're going to introduce Ditto. This is the first time I've actually pitched it to an audience, and I'm quite excited by that, but I have no idea whether it's going to go well or not. Just to give you some idea, there's a very bold marketing claim here that perhaps we should have run through Marcus Simon's logic, but the world's first synthetic consumer intelligence platform sounds like a bit of a bold ask. I think that from a more commercial perspective, our plan is to disrupt the $80 billion market research industry with what we have here. I'm going to show you a little bit of how. So, first of all, we just talked about the vision and the problem, always a good way to start. There is a massive shift going on in the way consumer behavior is changing. People are not so consistent in the way they maintain their perspectives. We need access to information about how people are feeling and acting toward their products. And so to some extent what we're aiming to do over the time of development is to give people a way to track how people are reacting that's faster than traditional research. There's also something very important that I think you need to grasp about traditional research. That is, most people lie when they're reading research. And if you don't believe me, think about Donald Trump's recent victory in US presidential elections. No pollster could ever get people to find people who are going to admit, it's not everybody, but a large proportion of people did not admit they were going to vote for Trump, actually went off and did that. Because research creates a certain type of behavior, and it's not always true. The other thing that's really important is that consumer insight doesn't live in the yes or no. It's not spoken often. It's much more emotional. It sits in some kind of undercurrent. And what we are trying to do is get to that rather than people just giving you what you're expecting in terms of research. The other problem about traditional fieldwork is that average research projects take a long time and they cost a lot of money. So if we're attempting to respond in more like real time, the traditional ways of working are really not going to be working. And I really like this one. the say-do gap is pretty much, I'm repeating myself to some extent, but quite often people believe what they tell you. The girl on the left obviously has a perspective of her going to the gym every day, meanwhile she's sitting on the sofa eating fast food. I can relate to that completely. So what are we doing and how are we doing it? It's going to be very hard for me to demonstrate that in a very short space of time, but luckily I have my very learned colleague Gianluca who's going to give you a live demo at the end of something that we've done. But we've created AI personas that are trained on real human data that respond to stimuli in a way actual consumers do. They're not complete replicas, but they're behaviorally identical to the kinds of people that you would want in the audiences that you're trying to research. They're fast, they're accurate, and they're free of cognitive bias. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? Okay. Yeah, I think what's in the audience there. So how are we doing that? There's 5 layers of consumer intelligence: psychographic profiling, behavioral science, large language models, emotional stimulation, and continuous calibration. Probably too much to share with you in a short period of time. Django is going to dazzle you with the results. And the thing that I think we're most proud of is the fact that everybody needs this emotional intelligence, because 95% of purchase decisions are actually created by things that we don't fully understand. What we want rather than what we need. Otherwise, nobody would ever buy a Ferrari, for example. The other thing is, I love one of my colleagues' phrases that's much more grounded in the realities of this. You can fail in private because you can actually test how people respond to new products at gut level before you've actually made them. Granular accuracy sounds like it's a new kind of gut fiber product, but what we're talking about is segment level precision across any demographic, psychographic, or behavior profile. We don't have to recruit, we don't have to incentivize respondents so nobody drops out, and we can reach audiences that are pretty much impossible to reach with traditional search. And of course, the big question is, does this work? Is it good, or is it just smoke and mirrors? Again, difficult to demonstrate to you, but most of the time, so long as we're not going too deeply into quantitative, but stay in qualitative research, there's about 1% deviation between what we do and real field work that we post-tested. Finally, traction. We've got people using this. We've got 3 live clients. This came out of a project that was only cooked up in about July last year. All the people who've been working on it are all quitting their jobs, and including me, to go into this full time, because we see a huge opportunity, and this is the moment. But those people who have been using it are frothing with exuberance and enthusiasm. I could connect with them, but you just have to take my word for it. We've also been very focused on building API architecture, which means that theoretically what we're presenting to you is something that you can bolt into other things. And it's really interesting. Mark and Simon's great presentation, by the way, love that stuff. It would be fascinating to almost plug that into a real live test of real synthetic people. And we'll talk about that later. There is a moat, and people say, oh, it's just a thin layer on top of an LLM. Actually, there's a huge amount of IP that we're building into this. And what has been so fascinating is that the more we use these tools, the more it helps us to build better and better ones with deeper behavioral responses. There are a team of, the core team of the people who own this, Gianluca and myself, and 2 other characters who are based in Toronto, are all exited founders, multiple exited founders. So we're not really wet behind the ears. I'm not as you can see, a teenager anymore. So we're kind of happy about that. There is an ask, actually this is an ask for people who want to invest in a platform, but that's probably not relevant to this audience. Probably the best ask is actually try it at askditto.io, but better still, you actually see what you're doing. And I'm going to hand over to Jean-Michel to actually take you through this.
Yeah. So this is a screenshot of Andreas, a colleague of us, who was asking James. James is an agent. James is an open Cloud agent with Cloud engine to create a research study for us for today. And James replies with, give me the topic, who to ask to, questions. And Andreas says, give me something about Ozempic, the GLP-1 drugs, in the US, and give me some 20 participants. So James, in a few minutes, started recruiting these 20 participants in the US and created this research study with 6 questions that I'll show you. Okay, in the meantime, so this research study is composed by 6 questions, and this audience made of 20 participants gave answers to this topic of Ozempic. Interestingly, the outcome is not only about the findings in terms of what they feel that it is important. Yeah, this is the research study. These are the profiles of people that have been recruited. You can see that they've got names, they've got pictures. They are just personas, they're not real people. They are split between different ethnicities, occupations, genders. Each of them has an age, and they are different from different geographies in the United States with different incomes. They read news. This is important. They're influenced by daily news, and depending on their profiles, they will read different newspapers or industry media, so that if there is a war in Iran, probably they will be more concerned about the petrol cost, and therefore they will have different thoughts about that. These are the 6 questions and different answers from the actual people. But what's more interesting are the actual takeaways from this report. We summarize the answers to the questions with different themes and examples and quotes from the actual participants that and you can go through and understand what has been their answers. And correlations. For example, here we can see that different segments, different groups of people replied answered in different ways. Older retirees are more cautious compared to high-income urban professionals that are more likely to take and to use Ozempic. This is an example of something that we created in a few minutes. You can go deeper. You can ask this group of people more questions. You can ask the urban people more questions about how would they use it. How would they use it more? What's their taste? And this is an example about this specific topic. You can use pictures to submit to a panel of users to show the new brand of your product and to get their feeling, their recommendations. So this is a demonstration of how Ditto can become an actionable tool to get feedback from synthetic research.
Thank you, that's great. Microphone back on. Yeah, very good. So thank you very much, Jean-Luc. Thank you very much.
We're going to move now to what I call the evil side of the house, which is usually sales. So we're going to be moving from, marketing, but closer now to sales, and specifically sales engagement. Whether we like it or not, any enterprise will need to sell to be viable. Even though we deliver value, we still have to sell. So this is where I spent most of my career, and just quickly about myself, I spent 15 years in SaaS enterprise, mostly on the product development side. So I've been building softwares for the past 15 years or so, and in healthcare and pharmaceutical industry. I recently moved back from the States, where I spent most of my career, Silicon Valley and New York. And I'm super excited to be here because I do believe Cambridge is a great place to start a company. And also I met my wife here, so I didn't have any choice. So I've been blessed to be part of 2 organizations. One of them was a rocket ship out of Silicon Valley, and I started as employee number 50 as a product manager, and 0 customers and 0% market share. And after 12 years, we ended up with 8,000 people with 80% market share. So a rocket ship. I think I lost a lot of hair in between, but what a great learning. Right now, I'm just building my own thing with my co-founder, and this is what I'm going to be talking about today. Okay, so quickly for the agenda, jumping straight into outreach, the challenge of cold outreach in general. Then why we are flipping the script with high intent signal first platform. So it's like a sales intelligence platform, if you like. I'm going to do a live demo, and then if we have time, hopefully I'll just talk about a quick case study from one of our customers. Okay, so I know we have different level of knowledge here in this audience on what sales is in general, but I'm just going to boil it down to the actual physics of what is B2B sales and just in general sales. Essentially, you have entity A who has a problem, and then you have entity B who has a solution. And for them to transact, you only need 2 things here. The first one is essentially the timing. Timing is critical here. And the second is build enough trust to transact. And that's it. That's it. 2 entities, timing, enough trust to transact. The rest is just the plumbing, right? So if you think about it, the legacy database providers usually sell you entity A, who to target. But then your job as entity B is just to interrupt them in their workflow. That's what you do, cold outreach, right? They don't tell you when or the timing or when it's time to engage with them. And that's kind of a spray and pray. Now, if I ask you here in this audience, how many of you have bought list of 50,000 contacts or 10,000 contacts to reach out to? I'm sure many of you who are in business today are doing that, right? So we're trying to flip the script here and focus on the high intent first, which is really the third part here. ICP, so ideal customer profile, right? It's usually your, let's say you're selling to accounting firms between 50 and 200 people. You target the head of department, the head of accounting. They just raised $20 million. This is typically what you want to target as your ICP. That ICP on Jan 1st, he's the head of accounting department. He will still be head of department or accounting department on December 1st, December 31st. But somewhere throughout the year, he would be ripe to be engaged with, right? And this is what we are targeting right now with our platform. Now, one thing also on the buyer's journey side, for those of you who are not familiar with it, all of us here go through through those phases: awareness, considerations, conversion, and loyalty after you buy. So when you use those 10,000 contacts that you bought from Apollo or those classic database providers, where do you think you're targeting here? Well, everywhere. Yeah, all of them. You just don't know. You're going to target the head of accounting departments. You come in and say, hey, we have this beautiful AI software. We're going to change the world with the accounting space. And that head of accounting would be like, hang on, what's AI? which would be odd, but trust me, that exists today still. Then you have those who already have a software and they don't want to change. So long story short, timing is critical. Right? Timing is critical, and not everyone is in the market to buy, and that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. Now, what we are building is a high-intent buying signal first platform. So think of a sales intelligence based on LinkedIn. And what I like to call it when I talk to my team, I'm talking a lot about niche monitoring. Because, as I said earlier, head of accounting is a niche. Like, I don't know anything about accounting. I don't even know why I picked that example. But all I'm saying is everything is a niche. So our job is to mine those pockets on LinkedIn. And one of the ways that we are doing it here is, let's say, the classic way would be the head of accounting at a firm. We usually follow a big industry expert on, let's say, accounting regulations, on investment banking for accounting, you name it, right? Or himself or herself, they are experts. Or you want to go after the competitors. Those are the classic use case here. But I'm going to give you that example here where essentially you have this accounting expert post where hundreds of comments, thousands of comments. Somewhere in 1,000 of comments, your ICPs live there. Now, not all of them. You have your parents, your sisters and brothers commenting on your post, yes, right? Your friends, your previous colleagues, but maybe 5%, 10% are part of your ICP here. And those are the ones that you want to target. So our tool is looking at our customer's profile. So you're selling AI accounting softwares, for instance, for that specific personas. And also mining the behavior of those commenters and profiles on LinkedIn. And only then, it's usually 5% at the very end, where you would consider them as high intent. Because there's the head of accounting, John, who said, oh my gosh, what's going on with that AI thing? I heard of these software tools, but I don't know where to start. Whatever that is, we can infer with our model the interest of that specific lead. So we do the same across multiple industries, but that's the start here. So we use our model to anchor. So our first agent here will anchor in that niche this person. And then the other agents, and this is the kicker here, they will start floating around. They will go off on their own and say, hang on, did you say you like John there? Oh, well, you like John. All right, let me just understand what John does, what he's after, and so on. And you know better than me that with LLM in general, if you provide example of what good looks like, I think you said that earlier, LLM is really good at identifying what good looks like. And this is what we do with our customers. So we are taking their recording calls of the best SDRs, or sales development representatives. We try to understand the ICP, and we feed our LLM with that specific user persona. So we know how to engage and find those leads. Obviously, it's a mode that we're building and a loop. As you can imagine, the more feedback we get, the better the leads you receive. And that's it. There's nothing else to do. All you need to do is to provide some competitors, industry experts that you like, or you think your buyers are gravitating around, and you will go off on its own. And throughout the day, you will receive feed in your inbox of folks to engage with. And every morning, you wake up to fresh leads with high intent because you know they engage with your competitor, they raise their hand, you name it. Okay, so let me just go through the live demo now. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, how much time do I have?
You're sort of out of time, so you've probably got 2 or 3 more minutes.
Oh, okay.
Jeez.
I'm going to go straight into it. So I'm going to spare you the classic onboarding. So usually the way it works, okay, maybe I can just show it quickly here. I'm just going to make it quick. It's very simple for our customers. Usually come in, you just put your URL, and we have our first research agent who's going to kick in and start learning about your business and your competitors and what your potential buyers and ICPs are. Right? So you start with that. Once you're here, we'll start populating by itself everything here, what you are who you're selling to. Right? You can also, obviously complement and add some more. The target industry based on your website and your publicly available informations, company size, where they are, you name it. Also, your ICP interest, like things that your buyers would say online when they complain about the pain points. This is also what will feed our agent. And then you can exclude companies you really don't want to work for. We have this use case where one customer who said, "Yeah, I don't want to work that company, so just be careful. I don't want to see them." So okay, that's fine. You can exclude company. You can also exclude service providers, right? Because we know they love to be in the comments to make themselves visible, which is normal, right? But you can exclude them, and then also show leads open to work. But that was for a recruitment use case. Now you carry on, and here, this is what I'm asking earlier, the anchor point. So I'm gonna take this guy here, let's say one of my competitor, I'm gonna paste it here. And then I'm gonna launch our platform. So what Rover AI is doing right now is scanning this John Pesler, who is an influencer in the AI automation industry. Okay, so they are going after all the buyers gravitating around him, specifically around this specific post that I just shared earlier. Sometimes, if you obviously provide 10 links, you can go after, the AI can do his thing for half an hour and come back and tell you when it's ready. So for this one specifically, I took a smaller subset. Hopefully we'll finish on time before the light goes off. But obviously, behind the scenes, going through every profile, trying to understand the profile of the leads, and then matching it against your ICP. And what it's doing right now is ranking everything that matters to your business, ranking it, and obviously here you can see, and I put a cap at 50 profiles just to make sure that we have enough time. But essentially it just saves you 2.5 hours of manually going through each profile and doing, looking at, is it part of my ICP universe? Yes or no? Everything that you see here is what the lead here, Cornell, has done. And it's matching against my ICP. He posted about commercial intent, interested in customer experience, business growth, no immediate signal for active by intent here, creative collaborations, indicating possible insight into community building. But the idea is, if you look at the interests, those are the interests and the themes about this person. If I take, you guys, for instance, there are five themes that would be always related to you at all times. This is what we are doing here. And then you can go deeper into the profile of that person. Like, he's particularly interested in creating customer-focused solutions, showcasing the authority as a co-founder, whatever. Leading consulting firm. He's interested in all of that. And you can go to the activity logs and others. And then once, let's say if you assume that this is a good lead to engage with, you can go through a AI-generated model now that is trained on social selling, not cold outreach, social selling on LinkedIn, where you don't want to be too invasive and it's a build-up more than it's a cold outreach. Then you can click here, you go to the website directly, and you can just tweak it. If you don't like the opener, it's just your suggestions. You can start engaging with those leads. You can save it, create it in a list, you can export it. if you want to automate that with another tool, you can do that. Right now, we side more on the safe side on our end in terms of our vision. We just don't want to go too fast on the terms and conditions that LinkedIn has today. That's it. I'm done with the live demo. All right, so last 2 minutes here, I promise, and then you're off the hook. Kuba Labs is one of our customers, actually one of our early adopters. And just for the context, it's a WhatsApp marketing automation agency for e-commerce, mostly for Shopify and I believe WooCommerce. Not familiar with the other platform. But essentially, what he used to do was the classic, buying large data set of contacts, right? And it worked. I'm not saying it didn't work. It worked for a while. Once he reached out, essentially we switched that to Rover AI to focus on LinkedIn specifically. He wanted to double down there and make it his first sales channel. What we observed as well when he was doing it is that he monitored the wrong competitors, because he saw a lot of engagements of those big competitors and he thought, oh, my buyers will be there. And with our learning, we just realized, no, there's a lot of activities, but it's mostly fluff around this competitor. So when our AI started to explore the over nodes or the over graphs, as you saw earlier, this is where we were able to say, hey, your buyers are not here. They're likely here on the right-hand side around those competitors. And so we started to swap industry experts as well to use as an anchor point. Yeah, there's one Austrian guy who's big in e-commerce. He didn't know about him. And that guy talks a lot about tools and setup. He didn't think that there would be a lot of buyers around that industry experts, but hey, AI will find it for you. So just follow it. And this is what we swapped the creators, as I mentioned here. We also switched competitors, as I mentioned. And we also tightened the ICP. At first, it was going super large, which obviously I understand, that's what I usually do. But then at some point, you have to tighten as you get to learn more and more your target audience. After just 6 weeks, we were able to 3x the reply rate for Giovanni, that's his name by the way, Giovanni. And he doubled his meeting per week in average. Now he's at 15. And all of this is moving from pitch, which is core outreach, to context first. Like as soon as Mark is saying something on LinkedIn and we're tracking that niche, you'll be the first to know that Mark raised his hand and he's looking for something. And that's the time to stop, because he's going to kick me out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
So thanks very much. The next of these events is going to be on May the 7th at Burkitt's, just around the corner. Probably about AI and infrastructure, but we don't quite know yet. So if anybody knows anything about data centers, there might be some of that, but we're also looking at other topics. So as ever, if you've got interesting case studies and you'd like the opportunity to air them in front of the audience, please talk to me. Thanks very much.